And for more, let's bring in former Vice President Mike Pence's chief of staff, Marc. He witnessed some of Trump's discontent with Jay Powell during his first term, among plenty others, probably. Marc, thanks for your time today, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
Before we get to Powell, can we start with Gaetz, the congressman? What do you think this pick is really about?
Well, I think that President Trump wants to be a disruptor, and I think it's really about going after his nemesis inside DOJ. But I think it's really counterproductive to those goals, because if Gaetz is looking to avoid some of the ethics report coming out, this is certainly a way to ensure it does in the confirmation hearings, because people will look through those reports, subpoena the DOJ initial report, and you'll also probably call some of the victims as witnesses. And I think for the effort to try to get recess appointments, that I think has a lot of sympathy, because I think both Republicans and Democrats have abused the advise and consent and delayed confirmations extensively. But you lose that sympathy when you nominate somebody like Gaetz, because that will ensure Republican Senates do actually not recess. They'll go into a pro forma session to avoid the possibility of recess appointments.
Okay, that's interesting, because I was going to read you this one take that caught my eye, which said the pick was, quote unquote, brilliant because GOP morale in the House improved overnight. Apparently, he was highly unpopular.
Right.
You know, so now Trump looks like he can reward him for his loyalty while knowing the Senate can never confirm him. You know, it spares the House's presence. It could save Florida's GOP a messy primary for governor in 2026, because, to your point, this the more that we hear about what's been going on, the less it's likely that his nomination ever actually advances.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it's as clever as that. I think the reality is that for Speaker Johnson, you've now lost 3 Republicans to potential confirmation picks, and your majority is probably going to be about 4 when all is said and done. And so it creates a very narrow governing majority, as narrow as it could be, in the House. And I think that additionally, it's important to remember that in 2012, I think it was, the Supreme Court ruled on recess appointments when Obama had appointed NLRB appointments during a recess. And conservative judges, it was a Scalia opinion, but Alito, Thomas, Roberts all sided with him to say you can only do recess appointments when, in fact, the appointment came a vacant during a recess. And so you have a conservative Supreme Court that's already on the record against the notion that the executive branch has this unilateral power for these recess appointments. So I don't know. To me, it seems like this is a big error on the part of the calculation on the Trump transition team.
Marc, it's Dom. I would like to be able to kind of pivot this towards the Powell conversation, because there are so many of these conversations that I'm sure Kelly and I are both having right now among market participants, among investors, among traders, just talking about the notion that there could be a massive Fed overhaul. Just how much of an overhaul can there be with the Fed, and what exactly is the relationship right now, as you see it, between President-elect Trump and Jay Powell, beyond just what we've heard in the headlines and beyond just the public comments as he's made? What has he said in the Oval Office in the past?
Well, Dom, I think that there's no question that there's a lot of tension there, and I think that President Trump regretted the appointment of Jay Powell, and certainly in many cases blamed Secretary Mnuchin for the advice of that pick. I do think that there's a fair point that the president actually has when the Fed now has $7 trillion in assets on its books. Suggests when people say it needs to have independence, is it not accountable to the people in some way when so many unelected people have such an enormous sway over the economy today? But I think actually Trump's complaints are really less about the management of the organization, and it's more just about the outcome, and that he really prefers lower interest rates. And that was his biggest complaint against Powell during the administration, is when the economy started going stronger and Powell was raising rates, he wanted them to stay low. And I think that you will see him very quickly and very soon begin to encourage Jay Powell to lower rates further than they are right now.
Can you also build on that, Marc? I mean, what was the experience that you witnessed between the president and the Fed chair? And it will be awkward if the market is now talking about the need for the Fed to possibly halt rate cuts at the very moment that President Trump is about to take office again.
Kelly, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people in conservative circles who say, look, that's not, there's much to do about nothing. The reality is Powell's going to retire in 26, and Trump wouldn't risk the ability to appoint his own person. I disagree with that. I think that Trump will very quickly be looking to put pressure on Jay Powell to lower rates, and whether or not Powell maintains his own position and does it for economic reasons as opposed to pressure from Trump, we will see. But I don't think there's any doubt that the president feels he has, as been elected president of the United States, the ability to put that influence on the Fed. And so I think that you're likely to see more volatility there in that relationship coming soon.